All right. Hello. I am joining you here on Facebook Live with my guest, Duke Rumely.
Hello.
And what's up?
I said hello.
There you are. And so um, I've been doing these Facebook Lives. Some of you may have seen a few of them. The point of them is I have learned so much on my journey as a counselor and as a professional in the mental health field. And I've connected with all kinds of practitioners and people in this field who are just really passionate about what they do and have a wealth of information and resources to share. And I really love, there's a quote, I believe her name is Margaret Fuller, who says, if you have knowledge, let others light their candles in it. And I really, truly believe there is value to really disseminating information. It does not serve me to just keep it all in my head or for Duke to keep it all in his head. Where knowledge is power is by sharing it with people, and and then it takes on new forms and new life, and it can really just lead to great change. And so I'm really all about collaboration and seeing a cultural shift around a myriad of topics, including this one that's very important to me and Duke, which is really creating spaces for sober fun. And so Duke started a nonprofit about 6 months ago or so, geared at sober fun and what that looks like. So I'm going to have him just kind of take over the mic and share more about what that looks like.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks for having me on. This is super fun. So, I'm a person in long term recovery, which means I haven't had a substance in 29 years, a drink or a drug. And I have a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. And this spring, my 20-year-old wanted to take an Uber home from Red Rocks Amphitheater because a bunch of people she went with were on different drugs, basically ecstasy. And I thought it was sad that this was the only environment she knew when she was growing up. And I'm petrified as a parent that my kid will be offered cocaine or some other drug that's got a deadlier drug in it. So it got me thinking, why is there not a secondary culture for these kids to keep them alive? So we came up with the idea of Sober AF Entertainment, um, and we create safe spaces in fun places. So we have done 30 events in 2018, and we had over 1,000 people come and join us. And we had 450 people at 3 Rockies games. We had 200 people at 2 CU home football games. We had 100 people at the Avalanche on New Year's Eve. So, um, really creating a space for anyone wanting to not be around whiskey drunk guy.
so
So,
real so really just a space to enjoy yourselves and not have that space kind of taken away from people who might be, like you said, in whiskey drunk space.
right. So, I mean, we've all been there. Someone's thrown up next to you and you spent $200 on a ticket, and it's easy for that stuff to be ruined. Some people just don't want somebody being overly aggressive around them. They might have kids. They might be in recovery. They might not be. It doesn't really matter to us. We're just
Okay.
we're basically a bunch of sober wingmen and wingwomen creating a safe space for men and women to come and enjoy themselves. Um, and I think it's a lot less awkward if that's the situation. If you're looking for something fun and you don't want to be around an environment that's very pro drug or pro wasted, then we got a
Mm-hmm.
spot for you.
Which is unique. And you and I were chatting. This hasn't really been done to this scale before.
So when I started this, I thought for sure I'd run into other nonprofits that are doing the exact same thing. You know,
Yeah.
it was a kind of a fear like, hey, if we start this thing, are we going to find out there's 10 of them already out there? And there's a lot of other great groups out there. There's A lot of bands have their own sober support group inside of it, and that's great to see. Base Nectar has got the Hummingbirds, String Cheese has got Jellyfish, um, Fish has got the Fellowship. And when I first got sober, I found a group called the Wharf Rats, and they were a sober support group inside the Grateful Dead. So there's already a bunch
Oh,
of groups at certain bands, but there's not one really for the tailgate beforehand. And what
gotcha.
we're trying to do is add software right now to our website. And to me, this is the exciting part, is that anyone anywhere can set up their own sober tailgate. So ideally, it's a national movement that is for fun and for free. And if you want to host a
Mm.
sober tailgate or find a sober tailgate, come to our website. And on the website, you'll say, hey, there's someone throwing a sober tailgate for the CU CSU football game, and you can RSVP for it. And if there's not one, then you can set one up and send out RSVPs for it.
Okay, cool. And how would they send out RSVPs for it? Just that there would be like they'd create that event and then they could take that link and send it out to their network or
Correct.
post it. Okay. And
So we're
so
in the middle of adding all that software. So in my
cool.
mind, I know how it should work. So we'll know more in about 45 days how it really does work.
Gotcha. Yeah, but you have this vision of, like you said, this becoming a movement that there can be this space, and you and I've talked about this, that it could be any kind of group that just wants an intentional space that can be sober, that supports what that looks like, and folks don't necessarily have to be in recovery. In fact, you want it to be really inclusive and to be this intentional space for everyone.
Correct. So we have found that there's 25 million people who are in some type of recovery from drug abuse or alcohol abuse, and that's self-reported groups. That's a large number, but there's 9 million kids in college under the age of 21. There's another 20
Wow.
million kids in high school. So there's a large group who don't have a culture of their own. And if you go
Mm-hmm.
to a lot of tailgates, it's just beer pong in the parking lots. And so we're just trying to help people create something that's not as alcohol induced. But to your point, there's not much out there for anyone who doesn't want to drink. Um, I was coming back from a trip on a Southwest flight, and our flight attendant had some interesting comments. She had gotten like too drunk the night before, and I told her about Sober A.F, and she was like, "Oh my God, I've heard of you guys." And she's like, "A week ago, I thought about like, what if I were to stop drinking? What would I do?" And her friend said, I heard of this group, and she emailed the TV link that we had. So it's
No
really cool
way.
that this is somebody who's not in recovery, may not need recovery, but just, you know, is petrified. If she stopped drinking, what would she do? And she heard about us. So hopefully she joins us
That's
at some of our
incredible.
events. Yeah,
How neat. Yeah. And like you're saying, the other thing there was that film that came out a few years ago, Anonymous People. And
right.
it really just talked, as you know, like it just really talked about how there are lots of folks in recovery or some form of recovery, even if they aren't in recovery from drugs and alcohol, from the impacts of that being in their life as a family member or a loved one. And so there's all these folks out there that have reported to me in my work as a couples counselor that they really want a space where sobriety is the intention, and there's a supportive community, and it doesn't have a particular spiritual leaning. It's just about getting people together that love a particular team or love a particular band. And I hear some
You need to
sirens.
keep
That's always
talking.
fun.
Sorry,
Yeah.
keep talking. I'm listening.
Yeah. So, that space can exist. And it is surprising that there hasn't been more of this organized on a bigger level, right? You're saying there's these different communities within different music groups, but on this bigger level of offering this. And we're really seeing a shift overall around offering a sober community or recovery. Like you and I were talking about Would you talk a little bit about the collegiate recovery movement that's taking place over the last few years?
So, to your point, there's a ton of pent-up demand for this, and we're curious why it hasn't appeared. And I think that's just not a lot of money in, a sober tailgate. But who knows? Maybe we'll get Pepsi behind it or somebody. Somebody's got to understand this.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a large collegiate recovery community out there. I want to say there's over 100 universities who have set up this sober support group inside different universities. The University of Denver has one. University of Colorado has a very large active one. We're actually partnering with University of Denver this coming Saturday for a sober tailgate inside their collegiate recovery campus building. And then we're walking across the street to the DU hockey game, and DU is playing Colorado College. So it'll be a lot of fun and two great groups to work with. We were fortunate enough to work with CU. CU was able to get us half off football tickets, and we all had a section together for the University of Colorado State game. And then we also had about 125 people at a tailgate before the CU UCLA game.
Wow.
So I think
that's a lot of people.
Had like 110 kids sit together for that game.
How cool.
We had a very amazing night. And to me, that was one of the first times I really proved that there was this pent-up demand, in that, there's the tailgate community also, but the flip side is there's a group of people looking to do this together. And they would rather sit together than be isolated off by themselves and feel like they're the only ones who can't drink at this football game.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of support, and something we know working in this field is the disease of addiction runs in families, right? And so, you have people who are children who maybe their parents were able to get into recovery early on, and they're going to college, and so they may have no interest in wanting to have substance around them, and to be able to just have support around that. And they don't even necessarily have to talk to somebody and say, oh, the reason I'm seeking this out is because of my family history, but just to be around a bunch of people who have that same goal, and how supportive that feels, and how it can really help build community when so much of what it seems like the focus is in college is around drugs and alcohol, right? And so
that's what spring break is, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about the school I went to for grad school, which didn't exist during my undergrad, is this idea around alternative spring breaks, and which I participated in both years that I was in grad school.
Right.
And the whole what I loved about it was that it was something outside of the norm of what spring break can look like. And I got to travel. I paid hardly anything to go out of the country, and we teamed up with a local nonprofit, and we got to be a part of a culture and learn from that culture. And there's this exchange, and it was so neat. And we got to support this nonprofit that was looking for more. Well, we supported two nonprofits that was looking for kind of labor, so to speak, but we got a chance to go out of the country, learn about them. I went to both Costa Rica and Trinidad and Tobago, and it was just so cool.
Places.
Yeah, exactly. And I loved that the University of Wyoming supported that, right? That they have this huge program where they're investing in giving students other opportunities during their spring break.
Good for University of Wyoming.
Yeah, they're building things, and I see. As you and I've shared, really just even that community really supporting. They've made lots of efforts to really support sobriety in the recovery community, and just the other thing that I see is besides college students, we're talking about, is families. How nice it could be to go places as a family and not have, you said, whiskey drunk guy, or for those that maybe don't want to be around people smoking marijuana, which is pretty, maybe they're okay with it for adults, but maybe they don't want it around their kids.
Right.
This can be another option for them?
So to your point, trying to kind of cultivate some type of sober spring break or alternative spring break, we are looking to do a sober Coachella, where we will have
Oh.
a some discounted hotel rooms out of LA, a discounted bus from LA to Palm Springs, discounted hotel in Palm Springs, and then the bus will take you home afterwards on Sunday night. So, trying to kind of create something for people who want to have fun, but don't want to be
Mm-hmm.
around so many people who are using drugs or using a lot of alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Which is a unique opportunity that, like, has that ever happened there that you're aware of? Like another organization done something similar at Coachella?
So there's a couple amazing groups out there. There's a national group called the Harmonians, and what they
Okay.
do is a sober tent inside a lot of the major music festivals.
Oh,
So
cool.
great group. If you go to Bonnaroo or Coachella, they have a tent inside there. I've actually seen their tent at Lollapalooza, and
Mm.
we helped get some volunteers for their tent here in Denver for the Grand Doozy in 2018. Um, so that's there inside. There's another group that does sober camping at different music festivals. So that's another
Okay.
great group. We're just, a landing page for anyone to create their own, and B, we're about kind of the community out in the parking lot beforehand.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, and the part that, like, maybe a lot of people who are like you were saying about the Southwest flight attendant, is just, they like, people like the part of like getting ready and listening to music and jamming out if it's a music event or before a game, talking about what the players have been up to, and like the pre-function, so to
Right.
speak, that of connecting and hanging out. And this is offering folks that opportunity to do that. Plus, they get to sit together and know that the people that they're sitting around are being intentional about the space.
One thing that's been really interesting, my daughter, who's 20, has come to a bunch of our events. She's the co founder, and she's not in recovery. And one thing she said to me is like, my friends and I realize that when we come to one of your events, that if we don't pregame an event, there's no issues. So she's learning she can go to events and not pregame it. And if that's the case, then her and her 5 sorority sisters don't have any issues. So she's also realized that we're a very safe zone, where we're at a
Oh,
Rockies game, and
uh-huh.
she had some guy not part of our group come slide in and sit with them and start drinking a beer in front of her. And so she knew he wasn't part of our group.
Mm-hmm.
And when the guy kind of realized what was going on, he got up and left, that it was a sober group. So she looked at me and she's like, "Yeah, I feel really safe here. We're in the dad zone." So, you know,
Nice.
something else. Um, I think we're a safe place for women. I think we're a place where kids show up and they put their phones away and they really connect with each other. So I think there's a lot of uh, different positive effects that happen when people come to our event besides just the not drinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
We've
because
had
the focus is on something else, right?
we've
Like,
we've had
go ahead.
groups show up from different um, sober living homes in Denver at a Rockies game. We had 190 tickets sold the first time we did a Rockies game, and we had
Wow.
100 plus kids show up for the tailgate, and they were so appreciative that there was something created for them like this, and they were so
Mm-hmm.
appreciative for a hot dog, and you could just kind of tell they never really thought that they could have fun again, and it was this great aha moment watching these kids.
That's so cool. And that goes back to like why one of the things I've said that's so great about your organization is I work with quite often with couples in recovery where one or more of the people in the relationship is in recovery from drugs and alcohol or a process addiction. And often when they come in, they're like, man, like we connected through stuff like through drinking or doing drugs together or going to these concerts and doing drugs together. Like, how are we going to have fun now? Like, how is this, like, what are we going to do? We don't know, just like that flight attendant show. What's that even going to look like? And so, I've come up with lists of activities they can do, because fun is such a need. It's a human need to have fun and have community. Like, those are basic needs. Right after food, shelter, and water, we have these other series of needs for, like, our spirits, and joy and fun are a big part of it. And for a lot of folks, it doesn't seem like that's an option once they're in recovery. And so what you're speaking to is, no, like, this can be fun. Like, you can connect with other people. You can go to these same events that you love, and you have a community that you're sharing the same goal. You can feel a part of a team. You're not off having to
Correct.
do this on your own, or even you and your partner do it on your own.
So it was great. We've had people from Narcotics Anonymous. We've had people show up who are part of Sex and Love Anonymous, who had just heard about us and they wanted a community to go up to Red Rocks and see Halsey or Pretty Lights, or Joe Russo's Almost Dead, or Dead and Company. And so we've had all kinds of different people who like different types of music come. So I am really excited to see how this grows in 2019.
Yes. And what would you like to either ask of our audience, as far as, our ask? Could be like, think about who you might share this with, or what would you like your last thoughts to be, I guess?
So I would say we are looking for people who want to have fun sober. So if you know of anyone who needs something like this, feel free to share it with them. We are also looking for any type of corporate sponsorship. If you want to share with somebody who thinks the kind of the wellness or mindfulness would be important to them, or recovery is important to them, or kind of young adult alternative lifestyles, we're a safe place for them. Feel free to share with them. So our
Cool.
website is soberafe.com. So the name is Sober AF Entertainment. So if you know what AF means, you understand who we are. You're more than welcome to come.
Yeah, it speaks for itself. It tells you a lot
Yes,
about the culture. The
right,
name tells you a lot about the culture of, like, life can be joyful and we can make fun of ourselves, and yeah, I think
right,
what I'm hearing from you is it's a very inclusive community. You're not trying to target any sort of community. You're just like, hey, the goal really is about community and connection. And you're helping facilitate that by creating a safe environment where sobriety is a priority.
correct. And the more the merrier. So, um, and ideally, when the software is up and running, we would love for people nationally to set up their own sober tailgates. So the 4 projects we have planned for this year is a sober spring break / sober Coachella, a sober summer break, which will be Bonnaroo, so a sober Bonnaroo. Um, we're also looking to do Major League Baseball games around the country. Next
Wow.
fall, on September, we want to have Project 72, which is 72 sober tailgates on the same day to honor
Wow.
the 72,000 people who died of opiate overdoses in 2017. And then in October, we're going to do a Sober October challenge. So if anyone has any issues or not sure if they have an issue with alcohol or drugs, see if they can stay sober the month of October. And you can find events to do using our website. And
Neat.
you can have one, set one up, and we'll help promote it.
That's awesome, Duke. I can't wait to see this, like you said, just spread across the country and take off. And it's such a cool idea and a great way to just connect people, which in this day and age with electronics and all kinds of things going on, we're more and more isolated,
So,
and
yeah,
more people are reporting high levels of loneliness. And this is a way to really bring people together in
right,
a neat
face to
way,
face.
face to face,
Do something
which is the
fun.
best. Yeah, it's great. Well, I'm so glad you participated in this interview. It was awesome.
Me
I
too.
think your
Thank you for the
organization is
invitation.
doing great stuff.
Well, you are the cutting edge of the spear with technology. So I really appreciate you pushing me to do this. I'm really glad that we did it under this new format.
Me too. I'm going to end the broadcast real quick.